Welcome to our third virtual workshop for the SeriesFest Vanguard Program, a brand new professional development initiative presented in partnership with Canva. This program brings invaluable insights from groundbreaking visionaries in the television industry. And today we have an incredible program for you as we talk with the co-creators of Blind Spotting about their process and pitch materials. But first, let me introduce everybody that'll be joining us today. So first, Tasha Dellin, our Senior Manager of Global Partnerships from Canva. Brenda Cadman, our Canva Verified Expert. Later, I'll be bringing on the co-creators of Blind Spotting, Grammy and Tony Award-winning actor, writer, producer David Diggs, and showrunner, writer, producer, actor Rafael Casal. I'm Randy Kleiner, the co-founder and CEO of SeriesFest. SeriesFest is a 501c3 nonprofit entertainment organization based in Denver, Colorado, championing artists at the forefront of episodic storytelling. We help creatives break into the business and take the next step in their careers, from pitch through production, through professional development opportunities, mentorships, events, and workshops like this. Everything for us culminates in our annual festival, and it is a milestone year for us. This year, we celebrate our 10-year anniversary, taking place in Denver, May 1st to the 5th at our festival, with a showcase of about 60 independently produced pilots in competition, major network premieres, panels on different aspects of television, and special events. This year is really shaping up to be an incredible year of programming, so we hope you can join us. And you can buy your badge at the early bird pricing today at seriesfest.com. I'm going to quickly just walk you through what you can expect today. So starting through with our introductions here, we're going to have a quick introduction from Canva. We will then go through and have a conversation with David and Rafael about their process, and then into a demo, and following that, we'll do a Q&A. So I'm going to pass it over to Tasha to talk about Canva.
Perfect. Sorry, I was jumping around on the slides there by accident, but hopefully
we got there.
Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today. I'm Tasha, and I am dialing in from a very cold and grey Sydney Friday morning. I wanted to give everyone a welcome back. If you have been on previous workshops, you may recognize me from workshop 1, and anyone who is new here today, a warm welcome to you as well. I'll start things off by giving a quick refresh into the great content that we've shared so far. So we kicked things off with Sue-Ann and wanted to just really talk about the beginning of the creative process and how Canva can empower creatives here, where it comes to ideating and kicking off creative ideas. And we really focused in on mood board templates and how that can help in that space. Recently in workshop 2, we had the Littleton Road team, and we moved into that process around organizing creative ideas. And we had a really great example from these guys as they had a project Dr. Death and using existing IP and lots of exciting materials to work from and organize. And we showed collaboration and organization of these within our templates for whiteboards. And then today, obviously, Randy mentioned our lineup. We've got our very talented Vanguards, and we'll be talking about pitching and that process around pitching and showing the awesome Canva features that we have that can really show you how you can elevate your pitch decks. And so if you have missed any of those, not to worry, you can grab them on YouTube. We'll share the link around afterwards. But before we do get into things and I hand over to Randy and David and Rafael, I did want to give a quick refresh into who Canva is, just for everyone on the call as well. So I'll start with our all-important mission, and that's been the same from the very beginning, from 10 years ago, and that's to empower the world to design. Empowering absolutely everyone across every language, across every device, whatever it might be. And how did that come about? So actually our founder, Mel, she was teaching design to students in a town in Australia called Perth. And she noticed that design was really difficult to use. It was really expensive. It felt like it was only really for the professionals. There were so many different programs you had to use that were all over the place when designing. And she saw a really huge opportunity in that. She saw an opportunity to bring that completely fragmented ecosystem into one place, one easy to use platform, Canva. And so over the years, we've evolved, and we recently introduced our visual suite. And that is a place you can design absolutely anything you want, from whiteboards, presentations, video, social media. And hopefully some of you have already been designing in this space already. If not, hopefully after today, you're going to feel empowered and ready to start designing. So why am I talking to you all today? So how we do communicate has radically changed. There's increased demand for visual communications, and that's impacted absolutely everyone, whatever industry you might be in. And arguably, no industry more than the entertainment industry. We talked a lot about this in the last workshops, as we know that demand for visual and standout communications is really critical when it comes to the entertainment industry across every discipline, across every role. And we know that you aren't designers, you guys, you're storytellers. And so it is a hard task to have to keep up with. And we also know that the stakes are really high too. So for example, a pitch deck being the reason why a project is greenlit or not, and whether a story gets brought to life. So pressure's high. And it's tough for everyone out there. However, not to panic, we have got a Canva here to help power your creative process from beginning to end, from development of a project through to production and all the way to promotion as well. We've got our whiteboards, we've got lots of presentation templates, and we've actually been working really hard with entertainment industry and professionals to get lots of advice around what would be helpful for you guys. And we've actually created recently 50 new entertainment templates, which I'll show you a little bit more later. We've got an example of some here. We've got whiteboards, pitch decks, call sheets, and we've also got film posters and so on. So lots of really helpful stuff to help empower you when you're designing, to make it as easy as possible. And that's just one of the ways we're showing up within the entertainment industry, leveling up our product. And we're also partnering with the industry, so forging meaningful partnerships like this partnership with SeriesFest. And we're also doubling down on trainings as well. We want to make sure that we're giving you all the tools and knowledge to be able to use Canva to its best of its abilities. I think that's probably enough from me now. I'll hand over to Randy, David, and Rafael, and I'll jump back on later when we get to the demo portion.
Is this now? Is this when I come on?
We're here. Randy, I think you're muted.
I am muted. I'm talking and nobody can hear me. That's really good.
Okay.
We're all here.
We
got this. We got the chat function going. People are asking. You can ask questions to David and Rafael. Please put them in the Q&A box. It's a separate box than the chat box. And we are going to try to answer as many questions as possible.
We're not going to read it all the time, but what up, Philly, Toronto, Michigan, South Carolina, Houston, Denver, Miami.
Also, Lauren Nagel, if she asks
what up?
about her cat, don't read it. That's not what we're here for, though.
Okay, I see. Right. East Oakland in the house. What's up?
Hey.
All right. Well, thank you guys for coming. I wanted to talk to you. You both are such incredible multi-hyphenates. And I wanted to go back a little bit. David, I'll start with you. You started your career as an actor, musical artist, performer. When did you get the itch to want to write and produce?
Well, I was always writing. I mean, the stuff is only separate because people experience them separately, right? And so, like, I think me and Rafael talk about this all the time. We probably both started out as writers first. I mean, in different mediums. He was a much better performance poet than I was, but I did the same thing, and we also made music. And so that was really the kind of impetus for everything. But in doing that, you end up using the skill sets of a lot of different performing arts. And I was also always really interested in acting, and I was always acting in school plays and stuff like that. So, the hype was like, if I could make money doing art shit, that's what I was gonna do. And it ended up how it ended up. So that's where we are in that continuum, is the short answer.
I think it's changed quite a bit, being a multi-hyphenate in this industry. I think did you ever find it, and Rafael, ask you this, did you ever find it challenging to, you really do it all. You're in front of the camera, behind the camera, you're writing, the whole thing. Have you ever found it challenging, or have you ever, or is there one that you choose to focus on, or how do you divide that out across your time?
Challenging only in the fact that I think the generations prior were encouraged so much to be sort of singular in their focus. And then I think our generation on has been, one, because it's more competitive to be an artist, and really to be anything, you have to just work a lot harder. And so, I would argue that any young person on social media now is already a multi-hyphenate, because you got to do the audio and shoot the thing and pick the filter and do the edit. Like, you're already kind of like a full-fledged production house. And so I don't know that it's not a strange thing now to be, or to have to be, and to learn multimedia skills and performance skills, and and be able to be and be a writer in order to like be an artist. I think that's pretty par for the course at this point. But I think probably in our early years it was a little less common. You heard that thing a lot of, all right, well, when are you gonna kind of focus up and pick one thing? And I think that was bad advice, and I'll stand on that.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think it's incredible, the path. I mean, with a show like Blindspotting, where you've done so many different elements to it, and created your concept, adapted it from a film, the whole thing. I think you've really helped pave the path for that. And I think that's so critical and important, because most artists aren't just one thing. Even when the industry tries to describe any of us as just one singular thing, it's just not the way we live. Well, let's talk about Blindspotting. As I mentioned, it was, obviously it started as a film. What gave you the idea that it could be turned and adapted into a series? When did that come about?
It was not our idea. Lionsgate ended up purchasing the film at Sundance and wanting to distributing it, and so we entered into this relationship with them. And I think it was one of our execs there who was like, "Hey, would you ever want to adapt this into a TV show?" And we were like, an indie film is IP for a TV show sounds like a terrible idea. I don't know why you would do that. And he was like, well, whatever, just think about it. And so we kept having conversations about it, and we were like, this would be terrible unless we did it this exact one. Well, that would be pretty cool. Oh, well, if it wasn't really about us, but it was be a good chance to show off Jasmine Cephas Jones and let her do more. She didn't really get to do enough in the movie. That'd be cool. Oh, what if so in the way that me and Rafael work, we just started spitballing things until we had an idea that we were really excited about, which was a little bit disappointing because then we had to go make it. But that's sort of how it worked.
And once you sort of decided, and there's a couple of questions in the Q&A sort of on this front, so I'm going to try to paraphrase a few questions here, but just on, so great, you have an idea, like what's next? Do you go and write the script? Do you go and write a pitch? Did you come into the pitch with a script? Maybe you can talk a little bit about what your process around Blindspotting was.
Yeah, for the show, it was all broad strokes, right? So the script is kind of like, a lot of people want to sit down and go, all right, I've got an idea. Let me start, page one. That's a terrible way to work. I mean, we've done it that way, to our own peril. But generally what happens then is you're 15 pages in and you suddenly have a structure idea that made more sense. And then you start again and you start again and you start again every time you've worked through a broad strokes thing. And so you're top level first, right? Who is this show about? What is this show about? Where does it take place? What aesthetically, what kind of a show are we trying to craft? How big or how small is the world? What does it sound like? What does it look like? What does it feel like? And so a lot of it is there first, and then David and I and our sort of main producing collaborators, Jess and Keith Calder, who worked with us on the film as well. We go to the board with the little, it's that old cliche shit. If you got a bunch of little cards and you're going, all right, first we're here, we're going scene by scene and trying to get everyone on the same page of picturing the same show and the same story and finding the same emotional beats right and the funny beats funny and try to get to the end of a pilot and go, okay, are enough things happening or too many things happening? And once you've kind of worked that to death, then you're getting to a script. And I believe we wrote a pilot, and then we took sort of our our broad strokes presentation of what we thought the show was and turned that into a half-hour pitch that we would take out to networks with Lionsgate to try to get a combination of this pitch and the pilot script picked up to get a series order, which is us going into the writer's room and writing the rest of the show.
Yeah, I will say there's a lot of people go back and forth all the time on whether you pitch with a script or without a script. I don't know what the answer is, and it probably really depends on you and what.
How good's the script?
How good's the script, but also how much fairy dust is attached to you. You know what I'm saying? Like that things. It's a lot easier to get something greenlit showing less when you're hot, and so like, and if you're less hot, you have to show more. I think so. Like that's So
you'll see like a press announcement of somebody who's very known selling a show, and you're like, that doesn't even sound like a great show. It's like, yeah, well, that they bought the person.
Right.
And they want to be in business with that person. But if you're purely pitching off of a great creative, you're not only trying to prove that it's a great idea, which you need to walk them through in its entirety, but you're also auditioning yourself as the person who should be in charge of it. And that perhaps is the bigger pitch.
Yeah. And I would say that's no matter what you're doing, no matter how much fairy dust is attached to you, no matter how good your script is, like you are the person who they are purchasing, right? So like, and it's that relationship that in the best of events is going to last for years, right? Probably not with whatever producer you're pitching to, because they'll be fired, but like you and that entity will last for years and years, and so in the event of success. So that's always good to remember.
Yeah.
With blind spotting, and especially going into long form, what was your kind of way in? Did you think like characters or setting or plot? Like what was your kind of way in, and how much did you really feel like you needed to develop out for the pitch process?
I mean, you have to go in imagining the whole show, right? That no studio or network is going to want to stare into the unknown with you, especially if you're not a seasoned showrunner or somebody who's kind of done this before. Now the big leg up that we had was we had already made the movie, and so most people meeting with us had already seen the film that we made, and so they knew that we like knew how to write, knew how to develop characters, that we knew the world. That helped a lot, right? But we've also sold shows where we didn't have that before, and I think there's a bigger burden of proof on aesthetically what this is going to look like, how many characters, what are other comps that are out in the world, because we've never seen your show, so a lot of people will do that, and it's cliche, but it really does work. It's this show meets this show, it's if this show and this show had a baby and it was funny, then at least I can go, okay, like I get, all right, now take me into it, now that I get kind of where you're fishing. Now walk me into your world. And then it's mostly character. If you want people to fall in love with your show and watch it episode after episode after episode, like you can sell me on all the amazing plot ideas in the world, but the reality is, like, if I hire a writer's room, that's their job. Pitch me plot ideas into the framework that I've built. But I'm in here trying to pitch the framework of the thing. These are the people that an audience is going to fall in love with. These are the tensions that they're going to have, whether this is the love tension, this is the economic tension, this is the somebody died and we have to figure it out. There's that tension. And then and do you have enough of a stack of stories, A, B, and C plots going on that's going to have an audience easily clicking to go to that next episode. So I'm watching episode 1, and by the end of episode 1, it's not like, all right, I'll turn that off and I'll come back to it later, which we rarely do. It's like, no, I'm going to watch 2 or 3 in one sitting. And what is that? How do you lower the barrier for entry and make it that interesting that you want to keep coming back to that group of people over and over again? So for us, for blind spotting, it was like, look, we can have all the great storylines in the world, but we know that doesn't really matter. What matters is you got to want to hang out with this family and hang out in these 2 houses. So let's try to build up the dynamics in these houses as much as possible. So anytime you're there, you're interested.
We also, for blind spotting, pitched a ton of conventions. We were really enthusiastic and overzealous about, having never made TV before. We had a bunch of ideas that we thought were novel for television. We ended up including some of them, but certainly not all of them. And the world we actually pitched was way bigger than where we ended up. And having, I think part of the reason we got away with that was because of the strength of the film, and because like people sort of trusted that the creative team, not just me and Rafa, but also Jess and Keith Calder, were capable of creating the thing, even if and so it was okay for us to go in there and be like, we're doing all of this crazy, there's gonna be 12 houses and we're gonna spend time on the block and we're gonna get to know, and one of the houses full of musicians and they're making live scoring the TV show, like, you know what I'm saying, like stuff that's actually impossible. I think ultimately what it ended up being, Stars ended up buying, was like, we believe that these guys are gonna do something cool, and like we have no idea what they're talking about anyway, so whatever, we're gonna roll the dice on it. And but like the characters were interesting, the world was interesting, and there was obviously plenty of story there. We weren't going to run out of story.
Totally. I think that makes a lot of sense. And since you kind of brought it up and touched on it, what was the pitch process like? How many places did you pitch wide? Did you pitch, not as wide? Like what kind of was the process of that?
Well, everybody kind of pitches differently depending on the project. There's these lists that come out through the agencies and stuff, which, I understand like people on this are on all different levels. Some people have representation, some people don't.
Totally.
But one of the ways in which once you do have representation involved is they tell you, the studios and the networks will put out kind of what they're looking for. Now there's this whole strategy around that I'm not entirely sure I buy into the bullshit of, but I think really like, we went to maybe 6 or 7 places, which we felt like that maybe 8 or 9 at the most. I'm sure it was all the usual suspects. Whenever you turn on your TV and you look at what streamers you're going to go to, all of them. went to all those places. And we already had a studio attached, Lionsgate, who had come about because of the movie. And so I think in that unique situation, it was like, look, we're looking for someone who wants to fund this and get it made. The big thing to work through when you're doing those pitches is to mind your level of fatigue, because you are going to repeat yourself a lot. And you're putting on a little show. You're putting on a little show of the thing you're actually pitching, and also like, that you're the people to make it. The process of getting those meetings is the same process of creating a thing, right? Like I see people already in the questions, like, how do I find producers? How do you even fucking get those meetings? How do you? If there was a clear answer that I could give, you'd know it already, because it'd be in Google. It is meticulously difficult to do all of those things, and it's a little bit like the chips kind of fall where they are, and eventually one of them has to be luck, which starts to get you into the other ones. But the reality is, if you have those are my dogs, by the way. This background doesn't show it. But if you have, the first thing that you can control is writing a great treatment and writing a great script. And there are smaller production companies that have relationships with those studios that are always trying to read those scripts and those pitch decks. And you, as a writer, can make a pitch deck for your show without other producers attached. Now, I will say the thing that Issa Rae has been quoted saying a million times that we all agree with and have said to ourselves a million times: look for people on your level. If you're looking for producers, look for producers that are also trying to make their first TV show, also trying to make their first movie, and work together as a team to get that script as tightly, edited as possible, and make a deck that other people have seen and other people have given you like real notes on. So by the time you're cold emailing Jordan Peele's production company, that deck isn't a fucking mess, and that script doesn't have a spelling error on page 4 like mine always do. You've really got a dialed in thing, because the first thing they're going to notice is whether or not this was ready to be sent to them or not. And if it is ready, if it truly is ready, I promise you there's someone at that company that's whole job is to do a thing called coverage on that script. And they have to read your script. They're going to write a paragraph description, and they're going to send it to their higher ups, and the higher up is going to decide whether or not your script is worth reading. And that is your actual way into some of these smaller production companies. But you do not want that paragraph to say kind of sloppy, too long.
In the meantime, because this might take years and years, right? It's a pretty long process getting signed to this point. And in the meantime, especially if you're building a relationship with somebody else who's trying to make their first thing or figure out how to do things, you can make things in your spare time, and I would. Even if they're things for practice, if there are local crews, you can get together just to shoot something. And it doesn't have to, I don't know how much I believe in shooting a short as a proof of concept of your fun. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but making things is never a bad idea. And so like ultimately what you want to do is, if you're a writer, but I assume a lot of people on here are writers, like take your script into all the way from the idea into production. Write something else really small that's going to be really cheap and that you can do with your friends, and do that, because you learn so much in the post process. You know, say if this is your first time writing something, you've never been in post yet, you should
have to edit it down. But these are all paths to learn how to refine, right? Like shooting something on your own, working with other people to make a pitch deck, which I think the Canva people on here are going to walk you through a little bit in a second, or going through the editing process of your script. Any of these things are ways for you to get outside opinions from peers and other writers about pace, about page count, about whether or not this is ready for people with money to see, to invest in you. And like anything, if any of y'all have ever watched, like, not that I really be watching it like that, but I see the clips on TikTok, like Shark Tank and shit, where they go and they're pitching an idea. Like eventually you're doing that with your idea. And if this isn't dialed in, if you haven't trimmed off all of the excess kind of stuff you don't need off of this, and to David's point about shooting a short film, if that's your path, what it teaches you is, did you need all that dialogue? Did you need that end scene? Was that location essential, or could you have done this a lot cheaper somewhere else? And then suddenly you're doing this thing with your script that you weren't doing before, which is thinking about, is this a cost-effective script to make? Could I trim 20 pages out of this and have it be tighter and leaner and stronger? And all of that also comes through when you're putting together a pitch deck, which it's the bird's eye view of your whole project. And things get revealed to you in that process. Is this too big for the format? Like, and you'll see, we're not going to go all through our blind spotting deck because it's too long, which we know now. But also when we pitched the show, it was too big for a half-hour comedy format, and we didn't know that because we were first-time TV people. And luckily, we had some experienced people around us who, through the process, were like, "Hey, you can't have that many people in this show, for the budget that you want." But if you can do this prep work before you get to that place, I think it has a much greater chance of success.
I wanted to tie it back to something you had actually said earlier, which is once you pitch to the first person, they're probably likely the ones selling it up. Right. So it's like a game of telephone, to your point, brevity, conciseness, but really opening up the world, is you want to make sure that that person can turn around and repitch your idea up. And if there's too much, or, you really have to think about it in that way, is what's the right amount to get people excited, open up the world, open up the ideas, leave that cliffhanger, but not so much where they can't turn around and repeat it.
Yeah. The ship runs on enthusiasm always. And so like, just whatever if people can walk away from the thing really energized by your pitch, that's the best situation you can be in.
Yeah, absolutely. We have some great questions coming in, so I'm just going to ask a few on blind spotting in particular here. Here's one from Isabella, which was, how challenging was it for you guys to adapt a movie with male main characters into a series that focuses so much on the female world?
Oh,
it was, well, I mean, challenging maybe isn't the right term, because we're enamored with Jasmine. The whole idea, the premise was, let's give Jasmine's character it's her due, so like that. Ashley was the reason for making a TV show ultimately, I think. But certainly, being aware of our blind spots, our writers' rooms were always mostly women, trying to and talking to, and all of the women on the show, once being aware that cast is a really important also element in the writing of a character. So once we had cast these women, once these are their parts, like, we asked for feedback, we asked for ownership over that, and tell us if your character would not do this, or tell us what you would like to do, or how, once you're into a second season, how would you like your character to grow? Like, those things I think were really important for us.
Yeah, there's this assumption that a show is run a certain way, and what we learned very quickly is that's not true. that you can run a show any way that you want. There's no one comes in and tells you how to do it. A lot of people give you advice, not always great. You know, a lot of it was us, you know, shedding ourselves on what our assumptions were about how to write and how to collaborate with other artists. And like everything, you're trying to create as safe a space as possible for people to suggest ideas, push back against ideas, give honest feedback. All, you know, we have to keep it productive and we have to keep moving forward. It's not a thought experiment, it's a fucking business, you know, but we're trying to write a story that rings true. And so I think when you're raised as an artist to seek authenticity as paramount, as, you know, the highest tier of what's going to make something feel good, then you're hiring people that can bring that at every step of the process. And then you're making sure that they know that that's why you hired them. You know.
Absolutely. Here's another great question from Glynis. How do you balance advocating for your creative freedom and organic ideas under the demands of the networks funding the project? I feel like that's always a interesting question. So
how do you navigate the demands of your own art while trying to pay rent? Same.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You got a certain amount of time. We went to them saying we wanted to make a half-hour comedy. So to a certain degree, like, we looked at the boxes and picked a box, you know, so then we can't go in there and be like, I just hate that we can't do an hour drama. It's like, well, we should have picked an hour drama then, you know? So to a certain degree, like, don't go selling something at the market if you don't want to make it, you know, and make sure that you're making the thing that you want to make, not the thing that people are going to want to buy, because what ends up happening is they might buy it and you got to make it for years of your life. And so we joke a lot that, like, David and I come up with an idea a day. If him and I go out for lunch, we leave there with a whole new thing that we have to now decide if we're going to work on. And half the time what we have to do is, like, a week later go, like, but would we want to spend 5 years on this if somebody really wanted to make it? And most of the time we're like, nah, it was kind of like an over lunch good idea, not a 5-year idea, you know? I think it's important to really differentiate between things that are fun in the moment and are going to be fulfilling in life and your sense of purpose. Because what is going to happen is there's going to be things about your thing that you're making that are sacred and things that are negotiable. And you got to really make sure that that network and you are aligned on the things that are sacred about your idea, so that you can debate the negotiable, but never come back to the table and debate the sacred, right? And that those things have to be very, very clear when you're pitching, that you're doing this show for these reasons, so they know what they're buying and you're clear on what you're selling.
Yeah, that's really important. And I would say this, you know, Rafa is the showrunner of Blind Spotting. And so getting to watch him navigate that space was actually super eye-opening to me, because and something that I would recommend that everybody take on, like, you're gonna get notes that are dumb. They are like that are misinformed and that are not, and what, because Rafa was showrunning, which means he's the direct link to the network, right? I was next to him, meaning I could talk all the shit I wanted. So, like, because I was never going to talk to them directly, but Rafa was, and what I watched him do was take every note, actually think about every note. And what we got into the ritual of doing was trying to find the note underneath the note. This note is stupid. What did they not understand about what we were trying to do that is something we could actually accomplish, that doesn't destroy our non-negotiables, or that doesn't, you know what I'm saying? Because there's something there. If somebody's telling you, somebody watched something and they're telling you it should be this other thing.
Yeah.
We all agreed we wanted to make this show, right? Hopefully. I've been in a situation where that wasn't true. But hopefully we all agreed we wanted to make this show. We know this show better than anybody. So they're seeing something that they don't agree is part of this show. How can we zoom in and dial in on what that is? And that is really important. So, like, it's fine to, like, turn the Zoom off and talk hella shit, and then 20 minutes later think about, well, what can I get out of this?
There's a thing that someone said to us early on, which I love, and I've heard this repeated by a lot of different great artists and producers, is, you know, when someone tells you that there's a problem with what you're making or working on, they're probably right. When they give you a solution for it, they're probably wrong. And so you should really listen to the problem, You know, they're trying to trim something because the end feels like it's too long or the scene's not working or whatever. Now, you know your work better. So listen really closely to what the issue is, because sometimes someone's like, oh, you need to trim, trim a little off the end because I want the movie to end earlier. Might mean that there's something in scene 3 in the beginning of the film that's dragging, that's setting a weird pace for the whole movie. And if you fix that, the ending will be more deserved. But you know the work. So you got to figure out what's the problem they're having. Oh, it's a pace problem. All right, well, let me see if I can pace it up so people's patience doesn't run out by the end. Or, we don't feel like we're getting enough of Trish in this episode. It's like, they're like, oh, put back in this great line. It's like, no, we don't need to do that. There's just a scene where we don't favor her coverage enough. Let's go back and favor more of her coverage. And so me and David's job and Jess and Keith's job was to listen to the note, regroup, try to figure out, to David's point, what the note within the note is, and come up with a solution that best suits the art that we're trying to make. So they know that we addressed it. They know that we considered it, because everybody wants to feel considered in their feedback, and that we've got a solution and to see if it earnestly is going to land.
I think that's incredible. That's incredible advice. We are going to come back to Q&A questions. There are quite a few in there. We will come back. I know there's even beyond blind spotting questions about pitching, writing, production. We will get to as many as possible, but I want to turn it over because we should all take a look at this original blind spotting deck and also hear about the opportunities with Canva. So I'm going to hand it back over to Tasha and to Brenda.
Thank you. That was awesome conversation. We're going to showcase Canva for you now. Brenda, are you on?
I am. Can you see me?
Yes. Hello.
Wonderful. Hello. Okay, so we're doing things a little differently here. Tasha is going to share her screen. Of all days, I am having some Wi-Fi issues today. So rather than me showing my screen spinning, we are going to walk through Tasha's screen, and we'll just do a little bit of an introduction to some of the features that you might want to utilize when you are creating your pitch decks, hopefully in Canva. So starting on the home page here, we're not going to spend a lot of time going through the layout of Canva. We've covered that in some of the previous workshops, but for those of you who have spent any time in here or who were in one of the previous workshops, this will look quite familiar. This is the Canva homepage, and you'll see that at the top of the page, this is highlighting the visual work suite. So Canva's visual work suite is made up of docs and whiteboards, which we covered a fair bit in the last workshop, presentations, social media, videos, print products, and websites. But what we want to focus on today is just a few of the features that you might want to experiment with in order to enhance your designs, including your pitch decks. So what would be interesting for you to know that a lot of folks don't know is you don't have to start from scratch, but you also don't have to start with one of the Canva templates. If you already have an existing pitch deck in a PDF format that you would like to add into Canva and use as your starting point, you can do that. You can pull it directly in. So Tasha is going to actually drag a PDF directly into her Canva account here. And you'll see she can drop files to upload. And if she scrolls down a little bit, we'll see that it is probably loading right now. So we're not going to wait for that to load. We've already pulled this pitch deck in. This is the original blind spotting pitch deck. And we're going to just open that up now. So if you want to hop to the 4th slide, I think that's where we're going to start. We're not going to spend too much time on a lot of these slides, but this was a slide that came up in conversation originally. We're going to show a couple of different ways that you might want to tackle something with a lot of images, a different way to do that in Canva. But Rafael, do you want to just mention a couple of things about this particular slide?
Yeah,
I
we
know
had
that
talked,
it was overwhelming.
we talked in prep for this about, and I'm sure if you guys are at the stage, anyone listening is at the stage where you're going to start prepping a pitch deck. You can find demo pitch decks online. This is not the one to learn from. But one of the things that I saw a lot when I was shown a bunch of decks was I would see pages like this that were these kind of mosaic pages. And we did one for the deck for blind spotting, but I wanted to talk about it, or at least work on it a little bit here today, because I actually think it's a really stupid page. I think it's a really difficult page to look at. And while it's it sort of satisfies a mood board of like, yo, this is kind of the place that you're getting into. You can't actually focus on any one thing. And so I pitched this back to them as like, come up, Canva should come up with a fix for this, where we can do a mood board sort of thing that's a little bit more effective, right? Because when you're looking at a mood board in person, your eyes are moving around, you walk up to it, you look at different images, but on a screen, on a Zoom pitch like this, or in a room, you don't have that kind of time. And so it's symbolic, but it's not actually doing its job. And so this is something that like older heads who've been pitching for a while tried to put me on. And now I'm kind of like, this is a useless page. We need to reinvent this.
All right, so let's look at another way that you might want to do this instead. And Tasha, if you want to add another page here so we don't overwrite anything.
A couple.
There are some features, yes, we're going to do a couple of different things here. So if you wanted to create a similar sort of mood board, but maybe something that was a little simpler, not as many components to it, we can use Canva's grids. So Tasha's going to go to the element section here on the left-hand object panel. And if you scroll down, what you'll see is there are two options that look kind of similar. You're going to see frames and you're going to see grids, and both of them are going to have this lovely pastoral kind of placeholder image in them. The difference is quite simple. Frames are going to be used to showcase a single image, and they're not designed to fill an entire page of your design, whereas grids are typically going to fill the entire page. So Tasha, if you click on See All next to grids, then we're going to be able to see just how many options are available. You'll see they're all rectangular, and that's because they're meant to fill the whole page. So Tasha, if you want to maybe scroll down and choose something that has a little more variety in terms of page kind of placeholders, but not as many as we had on slide 4. There you go. So we've got 3 options. And then we can also access any brand photos that you have in your brand kit. And we have set some up here. If you want to learn more about using the brand kit, be sure to go back and watch the replay from workshop number 1. We did spend a fair bit of time talking about how to set up the brand kit in that particular session. But if you, I'll have you click on See All next to photos. That's just one of the great ways to be able to see, expand what all the options are. And then Tasha, if you just drag a couple of these images into those placeholders, you'll see how easy it is to replace them with images. And then you can always double click and kind of move them around. And obviously you'd want to play with selection of what, which images are going to fit the space best. But this would be a really quick way to be able to set up a different mood board. There are additional formatting options. You can change kind of the spacing between the images. There's some different kind of formatting that you can do, but that at its core is how you would quickly create something, an alternate but simpler kind of mood board. But maybe you want to do something completely different. Maybe you want to take all of those images and present them in a completely different way. You can create simple video in Canva, and that could be an easy way to do a lot of images, would be to do a simple slideshow kind of video. So if you go to slide 6 there, we've already prepped one, and I am going to show you what this looks like. Well, Tasha's going to show you what this looks like, but if you want to go to your uploads, Tasha, and pull in a video here, you'll see that you can embed. So this is a video that we created, downloaded, and re-uploaded into Canva. There's a wide stock library as well if you wanted to find a suitable, stock video in Canva's library. That's an option for you as well. But you can see how the images are just holding for 3 seconds and then automatically changing. That might be another way to showcase a lot of images without it feeling quite so scattered. Tasha, if you want to jump over to the blind spotting video that we did there.
While I'm going there as well, it's worth mentioning that the grids that you showcased before, you don't just have to use imagery here. You can also pop in videos as well. So you can really play around with those and make them as engaging as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can see this was just a simple video, and there's 1 image per slide. We're not going to go through the details of how to set this up, but we're going to show you also actually how you could zhuzh this up a little bit and add a bit of audio to this. So if you hop over to the element section, you're already there. Fantastic. This is just one of the other sections. The same way you saw the frames and the grids, there's an audio section. You can search for audio by keyword. You're going to find quite a wide variety of options. And then Tasha, if you just want to click and add audio in place,
Yeah, you'll
And
also
then-
notice Pro here as well. Everyone will have Pro after these workshops as well, so you get access to an even wider library as well.
Yes. So the way we've got this right now, this would just play the track, and every 3 seconds the image will change, but you can actually do something a little more interesting. With that audio selected, you can see at the top here, it says beat sync. And what that's going to do, if we choose that, go ahead and click, is you can change it so that it automatically adjusts the slides so that the pages and the elements on your slides are timed to the music. So I don't know if you want to go ahead and just play it now, and we'll see how it changes the slides automatically. Woo, it's a little bit less.
Let me just stop share quickly. I think I did that rookie error of not clicking share sound. Oh no, it should have it in there.
Oh no, the sound is good. Sounds all
okay.
good.
So let me try that again.
You can see. Okay, can pause. So what's happening now is it adjusted the slide length because it is wanting to switch the images based on the beats that it's hearing in the music. It does this automatically, and it'll do it for any music that we use. If we were to add a different audio track and then chose beat sync again, it will automatically adjust all of those images to work with the music track that you have. So this is just another way you could take images, you can combine it with some of the audio features and the video features in Canva in order to display media content in a slightly perhaps more engaging way than just a simple mood board. So if you want to go back to the pitch deck.
As well, just on BeatSync, something that BeatSync's really popular for is we talked a little bit about film promotion and any social media assets. So obviously music and engaging visuals for that is very key. So BeatSync's very popular when it comes to that too.
Excellent. All right, so we're going to switch into talking about some of the fun things that you can do with the images and photos in Canva. I find most people are very interested in learning more about the AI options, and Canva's AI features are all part of their Magic Studio. We talked about the background remover in workshop 1. We talked about Magic Expand in that same workshop. So we wanted to show you a couple of additional Magic Studio features, including Magic Grab and Magic Edit. So if you want to start by searching for, I think we had searched on Oakland, and we're going to choose a couple of options that come up here and just go into the photo section. If you scroll down and find that one image with the sign on it, there it is. We'll add that in.
So you'll notice
we're
using brand kit imagery. So that's imagery that we'd uploaded and saved to a brand kit for blind spotting. But we're also now just jumping in to the content library as well, just to grab extra imagery. And you'll see when we searched Oakland, you've got it across graphics, photos, videos, and so on. We're obviously focusing in on photography right now, but it just shows you the breadth of the content library too.
Absolutely. So we'll hop up to this sign. What Magic Grab essentially allows you to do is to grab the subject of a photo. So if you wanted to separate something where maybe you had a photo of a person and there's a background and you want to be able to move the image of the person around a little bit, maybe to give a little more a little more space for a call to action. This gives you the ability to separate those elements so that you have a little more control. And not only can we reposition it, we can also resize it if we wanted to make this image, the front image, a little bit smaller. So it gives you that control. AI will use its AI goodness to fill in the background in the space behind the image. Sometimes it does a great job. Sometimes you maybe need to try something a little different. But in this case, it's doing a pretty good job, and that gives you a little bit more flexibility over the design elements. If we want to go to the next one, let's show Magic Edit. So Magic Edit is, rather than with the background remover, you're going to be able to actually remove the background altogether. There's other AI features that allow you to remove something out of an image. If you just wanted to remove maybe a car or something like that. We're actually not just going to remove something, we're going to change something here completely. So let's say we wanted it to be nighttime. Let's just say, make it nighttime. And if we have selected the whole image and we click on generate, It's going to take a moment or two to process, and then it's going to come up with some options for you. You'll be able to sort through them. If you like the options, you can choose one. If you don't, you can usually ask it to generate some new options. And sometimes it can take a little bit of time to do this, but I know that typically it is reasonably quick. There we go. That one's not turning out so great, but we can see this one is better. And then the one next to it looks even more nighttimey. So that's how you can quickly edit the images. You might want to do this, for example, if somebody is wearing a necklace and you want to change what the necklace looks like, or if you wanted to add an additional component onto a photo, it's going to give you the ability to add information that was not there before.
Totally.
And really, to wrap things up,
sorry, just a really quick one. It really helps with reference imagery. Sometimes you find that great image, but you want it to be a little bit moodier, or you want something like that. So this is just a really quick fix that helps when you're building out that reference imagery.
Yes, absolutely. And then if we want to present this deck in a different way, maybe we don't want to save it as a PDF, or we don't want to share a link to view it directly on Canva. If you want to share this as a website, you have that option. And one of the other components of Magic Studio is what is called Magic Switch. It used to just be part of resize, and you can still use this Magic Switch option here to resize a documented design into different dimensions. But you can also transform it into a completely different document type. So if we select website and then click continue, I would recommend at this point, it's going to give you two options. You can copy and resize it, or you can resize this design. I would suggest you always copy and resize. Otherwise, you're going to overwrite the original, and then you really can't undo that very easily. But if you copy and resize, then you're going to be able to, oh, apparently not. Let's try that again. Let's try open.
I'll try and resize it one more time. That doesn't usually happen.
Just try searching on websites. Yeah. No, that does not normally happen.
And websites is obviously just a different way of presenting your pitch deck versus a presentation. And it's just really simple to be able to resize. You can resize against social media. That's not seeming to work right now. I'm not sure why. Yeah, normally it's just a click of a button, but always
normally it will. Yes. No, I tested it multiple times this morning, so I know that that does work. And what it allows you to do is you can actually preview it and see what it'll look like in a normal desktop layout. You can also see what it would look like on a mobile device. So it gives you that flexibility to be able to present the information in whatever way is going to make sense, the most sense for your audience. And then finally, if we just want to look at perhaps insights, there's this little bar graph icon that's easy to miss if you aren't looking for it, but this is going to give you some information about how people are interacting with a particular design that you've created. So you can see the number of views, you can see the number of viewers, but there's this newer option down here called unique links. If you want to click on that, Tasha. If you wanted to be able to share a specific link and track exactly how that is being engaged with, you can create a unique link to do that. So maybe maybe you want to give this deck to in a pitch meeting. So maybe we just call this link, pitch meeting. You could call it whatever you want to call it in order to identify it. Then we're going to create the link, and then it's going to give you the option to copy this link. And when you share this, you'll be able to keep unique track of the views, the average time viewed, so that you can, distinct from the general viewing of it, you'll be able to know how it's being interacted with. And then if you need to remove the link, it's as simple as clicking on the three dots next to it, and then you can rename it, or you can actually delete that link altogether. And as with any design in Canva, you can take advantage of the collaboration opportunities. You can click on the comment icon that appears next to the slide. So if we just want to open up an individual page.
Just on the insights really quickly, just a little bit of info on that. So obviously it's just a little bit of light stalking there. Obviously when you send your pitch decks out to lots of people and you're waiting to hear back from them, you can actually see if they've read it or not, which is really great. And you can be really specialized in terms of that. One other thing just on this sharing out as well, before we get into the commenting. So you can actually just share a view link to people. And Rafael, I know you mentioned before about typos on slide 4. We've all been there. We all do that. So one thing I really love about sending links in Canva rather than a downloaded file is if you spot that typo, or you spot an image that you actually don't want to use anymore, you've sent that out to someone in email, you can easily update the deck and they have that live link. So they'll see that update and they'll never know that you put that typo in there, which I think is a nice little hack.
And then, yes, and then you can do commenting. You can tag somebody else if you want their input. You can assign a comment to someone. And then under normal circumstances, if my Wi-Fi was playing nicely, I would hop in and respond to that comment right now. But unfortunately, the tech gods are not in my favor right now. But you've got all the same sort of features that available on a pitch deck here that you would have seen in workshops 1 and 2 that we covered previously with SeriesFest. So otherwise, I think to wrap things up, Tasha, did you want to just run through some of the entertainment templates that have been designed by Canva specifically for the industry?
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you, Brenda. So obviously we were having a bit of a deep dive into an older blind spotting deck just to kind of show you what we could do to make it a little bit more engaging. Rafael, you mentioned before that you can get lots of other templates as well. We've actually created these bespoke templates for the entertainment industry. It's at canva.com/entertainment, and you'll see that resources slide towards the end of the presentation as well. And here you'll be able to find a number of different templates across the entire creative journey when creating a film or a TV piece. We've obviously got some TV and film pitch decks in here. So it's as simple as using the template. You click through there, it will open up, it'll make a copy for you. And then you've got all of the pages in here that are fully customizable, that you can work from as well. You can change fonts, you can change colors and so on, but it just means you're never starting from a blank screen. And if you're someone like me that can definitely get decision paralysis in terms of fonts and things like that and colors, it just helps you have that set up and ready to go, but you can easily make changes if you need to. So have a play next time you have a project to do across a film poster or TV poster or a pitch deck or a mood board. Have a look within our entertainment landing page and you'll be able to have a play and find these too.
That's great. Thank you so much, Tasha and Brenda, for walking us through all of that. And I want to make sure we've got some time here to get to the many, many questions. I've been trying to cull them as we've been talking here and answer the most frequent ones as well as some other ones. So I thought, though, just coming off the pitch deck, I thought there was one good one here from Jason here. David and Rafa, do you ever tend to send a pre-pitch package to studios, or do you tend to save your pitch decks for the actual pitch in the room?
We've done both.
Yeah, there's not a right answer here. Certainly, if you know of all the assets you can make around an idea, obviously like a log line or a small paragraph is always good to bait people's interest. That's generally how you would get the meeting, is someone is setting up a meeting and trying to explain to them what they're potentially going to hear. So it's not a cold pitch. It's we're pitching to the half-hour team or the hour team about this kind of an idea. So that will usually go ahead, and usually that comes along with biographies of all the people that are going to be on the call, so they know if there's an experienced producer in the room, or if what you've done in the past, just to have some context for who they're talking to. We've also sent the deck ahead of time. We've sent the script and the deck ahead of time. We've sent just the script. This is all personal preference, and whether or not, as you're designing how you would roll out the idea to someone, what they would need to read. And like, we've written scripts together where I'm like, oh, I don't want to tell them anything about the idea. Like, the fun is them reading and realizing what the thing is. And so it's script first. But also just think about, if you were going to tell someone about your idea, like your friend, someone who's in your corner that wants you to succeed, how would you present it to them? And do that with strangers as well. What the best way I can always tell whether or not I'm presenting it right is I try to explain my idea to someone who should be really receptive to it. And if I start fumbling, or if I suddenly need a visual reference and I start picking up my phone going, it's like this, look at this, like clearly the visual reference I should have had in my hand already. And so kind of explaining the idea will tell you how best to roll it out. and practice that a few times over and over again, right? The deck is not some mandatory thing you need that's like a secret code that everyone needs to learn an idea. It's just a tool. You only should have in it what you think is actually useful for presenting your idea. There's not a like page 1 has to be this and page 3 has to be this. That's just sort of the generic path that people have done when they're not sure where to start. But you really do have to like use the rubric to build confidence around your idea and then decide exactly how you would do it if you were going to present your idea in the best light to strangers, and then ask them for money. That's your goal here.
I think the things that are happening before you get in the room are actually really important. And sometimes, you know, the team around you is this is, you know, depends on them a lot. But like somebody, if it's your producer, if it's your agent or manager or somebody on your team, or if it's got to be you, it's got to be you, but it probably shouldn't be you. It needs to be creating an atmosphere of excitement. You want them to be excited to talk to you before you get there, is like the best possible situation, right? So if we're working with a production company who's already, you know, on board or something, like their job before the pitch is to get in there and be hyping it up, emailing everybody who might be on the pitch, try to make sure the highest possible level of producer at the company who would see a pitch like this is at it. Because again, like as we talked about earlier, they are upselling it to their bosses. So the higher you can get on the food chain who's in the meeting, the fewer things someone's going to have to upsell, or the fewer steps it's going to have to go up a food chain. But generating an atmosphere of excitement, or at least like a lot of these producers see a lot of these. And so if you have someone going in there being like, this one's fun, you know, or this idea is like different, I've never heard anything like this, that's going to help you out. I think pre-gaming the meeting, someone should be pre-gaming for you.
I think you're also talking about too, I mean, these are executives, right, that are hearing how many pitches a day over how many pitches a week, month, year. You've got to be memorable and stand out. I think you guys have brought that up. Concise, memorable, and stand out ultimately, and be prepared for that.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna rapid fire here, but the probably most often asked question in this chat was around writer's block. So I want to make sure to ask you both that. You know, do you have any tips when you on how to combat writer's block? Is that something you come across often?
Nobody likes to write.
Yeah, right. We were just talking about writing sucks.
Terrible. It's amazing when you're done, but oh God, it's an awful.
Right before you start and right after you finish. It's like,
yeah.
You know.
But knowing that it's really, really painful is really advice to do as much planning and prep on the broad strokes before you start writing, because what you don't want to have to do is do more writing that you have to. You know, I see somebody in the chat like, I love to write, not me.
Good.
Yeah, I like to write a fucking page. I like to write a poem. I like to write a song. But when you're on your 19th draft of a 130-page script that should be about 95 pages, I promise you, it's going to start to hurt a little bit. And if you can save yourself some of that time by planning, then you have a finite amount of energy. And there's moments of great inspiration, and you can write well during that inspiration, and sure, it pours out of you, and how lucky for you that you're in the flow. But the reality is it's a job. It's not I write when I'm inspired to. Like, you've been contracted at a certain point to write, and you have a deadline, and there's a schedule, and you're not going to have the opportunity to wait until it strikes you. And so you need planning and framework tools to be able to keep like going, 20,000 feet in the air and looking at the thing, so that you can get down to the changes you need to make without losing the most amount of energy, because you have a finite amount of enthusiasm.
Having a friend who also writes is good, because you can write next to them and just curse at your computer screen or whatever it is that you need to do.
Love that. Here's a question about blind spotting in production and specifically filming on location. And I think it's a great one, because I think Oakland is sort of its own character in the series, if you will. How did you navigate filming on location as opposed to filming in a studio? And what was the balance, and how did you have to negotiate that with the studio?
Yeah, I'm glad you picked that question. I saw it in the chat earlier. It location is hard, and or harder. It really depends on the show, but you have to just understand that when you are on your set, everything is set up and ready to go, basically. And when you're on location, it isn't. And then if your location is really necessary and specific to your show, like Oakland was for us, and it's not even in the same city as you're shooting on, it's really expensive to go shoot up there. And so you're going to get pushback, rightfully so. You're never going to get the amount of days you want up out on location if it's not right next door to your set. And so I think navigating that and feeling again like what's really necessary and how are you going to get the most bang for your buck. So what we learned pretty quickly on blind spotting is that like if we're gonna go shoot up in Oakland, we better be seeing something. The image that is on the camera better not be something we can get anywhere else, you know. So it has to be really, really specific and really, really beautiful. And then you have to plan the shit out of it. And even still, it's all gonna go wrong. And you know, your truck's gonna get robbed, and so you got to go up there and like be in the community and understand that everyone's on the block. You're going to be shooting late and really try to make friends with people and be really, really, really careful about your footprint out there, because you also are like literally invading people's lives. Even if you're working at a business, you shut that business down for a day and they're getting paid for it. But like the community that uses that business doesn't know about. We learned that the first time we had to shut down a liquor store. So like,
everybody wants you to shoot in your hometown until it's on your block. It's like, this is terrible. Get out of my space.
Yeah,
it
is terrible. They're not wrong. You're making a ton of noise. You got babies trying to sleep or whatever. So it is hard to shoot exteriors on location, and you should make sure you really need them.
Yeah.
Staying on kind of blind spotting for a second here, I know there were a couple questions around, you know, just basically, you know, spoken word and movement both being such integral elements, and where your inspiration came from and how much in the script were those. I mean, the spoken word, obviously, but even the dance and the movement, how much in the script were those pieces?
There were different color cards on the board. You know, we'd look at every episode and go, what conventions are we going to use this episode? We try to not to do too much where like there'd be a dance piece and a verse piece too close together, because we know that there's like a finite amount of patience from the audience, especially like the sections of the audience that really love those conventions and the sections of the audience that really don't. And so we tried to make sure that it was serving the story really well, and not just sort of, especially after the first few episodes where we really got the hang of how those conventions work, to make sure that it always had a purpose and wasn't just there for icing on the cake or to be artsy for artsy's sake. So yeah, I mean, but we, you know, with dance, we're always looking for things that we don't think can be expressed in words, but need to be felt differently. And of course, our convention for dance in the show was, we saw dance anytime sort of the arms of the prison industrial complex was impacting particular characters in a way that they couldn't articulate, or maybe they weren't completely aware of. And so when you're watching the show, that's when dance really appears. Even the first time dance really shows up, which is like the moving boxes into the house. It's like, yeah, you know, Ashley doesn't realize it yet, but her whole life is changing because of Miles's incarceration. And poetry, similarly, the idea that Ashley doesn't really fully have a safe space to be honest, because the one person she can be honest with is behind bars and she's being monitored all the time, chooses the audience as the safe space. So we always imagined that the poetry was sort of Ashley's journal, like that she is a poet, even though she's not like trying to pursue a career as a poet or hit an open mic, but that she writes like that to get her feelings out. And so these are sort of the poems that she is expressing herself through in this really hard time in her life. That was our framework. And so we look at the episode through those lens, which conventions, and does Ashley need a moment to express herself in a way that she can't express herself to the people around her.
Shout out to John Buggs for the choreography Emmy Award.
I think John is on the stream right now. So shout out John winning an Emmy.
He will tell you how little actual dance was in this. I mean, like, we would be like, a dance here's what it has to do.
I'd usually run up on John with like 2 video references and be like, look, this is what I see in my head. do what you want, but like
Do the
this is
thing.
what I thought it would look like.
Yeah.
And then we would, we'd kind of go from there. And shout out Jess Calder, who directed one of the big ones that won the Emmy.
Yeah, I love that one. Again, when you talk about things needing to stand out in a pitch, I think those are two very unique conventions to blind spotting that really, of course, stand out and translate to beautiful storytelling. So love that. And I wanted to ask a question here that's come up in a couple different ways here, but kind of going back to you being multi-hyphenate and doing a lot, how did you balance on set the kind of writing, directing, showrunning, acting? How did you do that? And were there any challenges or how did it help you, when you were directing and things like that?
Yeah, sleep was hard. Sleep was tough. Showrunning and directing, honestly, easier when I was directing and showrunning, because then there's one less person I have to navigate. But I love learning from my other directors, and the way in which they would direct our show is fascinating to watch. But there is like a stream of consciousness that gets like 1 degree shorter when we've done all this prep, and then it's just me, David, Jess, and Keith running the show for that week or two. So that's great. Like the hardest challenge is with any show is like, especially when you're new at it, which I would imagine there's not a ton of people on this chat who are on their 3rd show, because why would you be listening to us? But when you're making a show for the first time, there's just a lot of firsts. There's a lot of lessons you're learning in real time, and so you're stacking a number of lessons and mistakes all the time that you would do differently next time. And so I think the challenge of kind of me and David having our hands in so many different things is that there was a lot of inexperience to go around, which meant that we wanted to make sure that we hired department heads who had done this many, many times before. So we were the only new kids. But then the benefit is there isn't 20 people in charge of creative, that then you get this weird like combination of compromises. It was really, really easy to get a straight answer of how a thing had to look, because you just had to find me or David. And that kind of all in one placeness can be really, really great. Like I think of some of the other, some of the really great sort of contemporaries that we have the luxury to be around, like Quinto with Abbott Elementary and Issa and all these, like there's all these amazing showrunners now. And what's great about people like that who have a singular vision for their show is it does feel hyper specific, because everything is kind of passing through them. So whether you love it or hate it, like it is the show that they set out to make. I think sometimes that's better. I would rather see a show that feels fully in its vision than a show that feels like the product of too many voices and compromises.
Absolutely. What do you think, just going back to pitch process, what do you think is a good length of a pitch? And do you ever change your pitch based on the network or studio that you're talking to?
Yes.
Yes.
As short as possible.
Minimum amount of time for you to pitch the show to make it that length.
Yeah. You want lots of time for questions and discussion. They're never going to go over an hour. Your pitch could be 20 minutes, a strong 20. I wouldn't break 30. I think that has to be a very particularly big world for you to go up to 30, because you want 10 minutes to talk, and they really don't want to be on the call more than 45 minutes, or are you in the room for more than 45 minutes? They got other shit to do. It's a feeling in the end. It's how they feel about you. So if you don't waste people's time, it increases their like for you. And it shows that you won't do that in post. You won't have too long of an episode or too long of a script or too long of whatever. Like knowing how to edit is really a high value skill set.
We have to, when Rafa and I are pitching together, we have to consciously make the pitch itself very short, because we talk too much.
Yeah, you've been on this call.
Yeah. So like, we have to make sure there's way less information in the thing, because we're going to keep, and that, but knowing yourself is also important. And, I've been just a producer on pitches with writers who like write every single word out and they read their script exactly. And if you can make that charismatic and fun, do that if that's what works for you. There's again, like there's not a way that works. And I've seen some pitches like that that are very, very strong, but they replicate the exact same thing every time. And there are the moments written in for like producer interjection or for you know what I'm saying. That if you know that is what's going to help you, do that. But again, like you're putting on a show. And so it's gotta be engaging, and the biggest thing is it should be short.
Absolutely. Well, I know we're coming to an end here. We want to just share some final resources with you. David and Rafa, thank you so much for sharing your insights, sharing the kind of creation and pitch process of Blind Spotting. We're so grateful to have you as our vanguards. Thank you again so much for sharing your time. We're so grateful. Quickly, just to wrap it up, there's a couple of resources on here for you. First of all, there's a workshop survey. We'd love to hear your thoughts. It takes under 5 minutes, literally a minute or two, as well as some useful resources from Canva. Please check those out. Look for an email from us coming in the next week with a wrap with some materials for you as well. Thank you all out there for joining us. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys. Thanks.